I have a confession to make. I have control issues. I like to take control. I like to give orders. I like it when people follow them. And you know, every day as I strive to be a leader in service to others, I struggle against that instinct because this is what I learned. To be a leader in service to others, we need to give control, not take control. And we need to create leaders, not followers. The idea of the leader as someone who takes control stems from these days, when what we were interested from people is simply their physical output. All we cared about were their hands or backs. Take a look at the lady in row number 2, position 5, looking at the camera. What is she thinking? We don't care. All we want are her hands. And although sometimes it may feel like you work in a place like this, what we want now from people is thinking. Like these coders. Their hands aren't enough. Or these airmen running this ops center. Or the operators of this aircraft. We know what happens when we give people control. We know what happens. This happens. People gain agency. They become passionate, involved, engaged, committed, participants. It works in a country. It works in a company. Mohammed Saif voted in last week's elections in Cairo. And he was quoted in the New York Times as saying, "It was like honey to my heart. For the first time, I felt I had a role to play. My vote could actually make a difference." And you know what? It was honey to his heart because people with control are healthier. They have fewer sick days. They weigh less. They have less instances of heart disease. They live longer. So when you take control, not only are you taking vitality and engagement and enthusiasm, but you're stealing their health as well. I was well prepared to take command of the USS Olympia, nuclear-powered fast-attack submarine, in 1999. For a year, all I'd done was study the piping, the procedures, the people, and every problem the ship had ever had. Unfortunately, I didn't take command of the USS Olympia. I took command of the Santa Fe because at the last minute there was a shift. And I found myself on a much newer and unfamiliar vessel. Never mind, I would just bluff my way through it. And the day came to get underway, and I went and I found the engineer, and I said, in a very loud and confident and authoritative voice, "Engineer, start up the reactor." He went off and started up the reactor. And a couple hours later, I found the XO. "XO, make all preparations to get underway." I went up on the bridge at the right time. "Get underway." We cast off from the pier. "Clear the bridge." We went below. "Submerge the ship." We dove under the ocean. "Ahead flank." The officer deck ordered, "Ahead flank. Helm ahead flank, aye." And back in maneuvering, the throttleman was winging open the throttles, and the steam from the steam generators went into the main engines, and the ship torqued over heeled over because of the torque. We surged through the depths of the Pacific. It was awesome. I felt good. Well, the next day, the very next day, we're going to run a drill. We're going to shut down the reactor due to an imaginary fault, and my technicians are going to have to fix it. And when we shut down the reactor, you shift to a backup motor, the EPM, which runs off the battery. So I'm standing in the back of the control room, and everything seems to be going fine, and I'm kind of getting bored. And I start thinking, anyway, I start thinking, and I say, thinking to myself, you know, I can't let these guys think their new captain's a softie. So I'm thinking if we speed up on the EPM, it's going to draw more current, it's going to drain the battery faster, it's going to create what I like to think of as a sense of urgency in the restoration of the reactor, because there's no, extension cord. So I grabbed the officer deck, who's the navigator. I've been on the ship the least, and he's been on the ship the longest. He's been on the ship for over 2 years. Senior department head. I say, hey, Nav, let's give those nukes something to think about. Ahead 2/3 on the EPM. And he orders it. Helm, ahead 2/3. Nothing happens. Very astutely, I recognize nothing's happening. And I can't really see the helmsman because number 2 periscope's in the way. So I lean to the right, and I look, and I can see, I can see his shoulders are tight. And he's almost squirming, and I say, Helm, what's happening? He says, he's facing away. He says, Captain, there is no 2/3 on the EPM. I had made a mistake. Unlike every other ship I'd ever been on, there's no 2/3 on this ship. So, of course, good job, like I pretended it. You passed the test. So what do I do next? I grab the Nav. Hey, Nav, did you know there was no 2/3 on the EPM? Yes, sir, I did. So my arms are flailing at this point. Like, why did you order it? Because you told me to. Because you told me to. And it was a moment of clarity unmatched in my life, because at that moment I realized we had a crew that was trained for compliance and a captain that was trained for the wrong ship. And that was a deadly combination. We were going to die if we didn't fix it. So as soon as the drill was over, I gathered all the officers. We went down to the wardroom. I said, hey, here's the problem. They already knew the problem, so I was just talking for myself at that point. And I said, we're gonna turn everything around. Instead of me taking, I'm gonna give control. So I stopped giving orders. I said, I'm gonna not give one. The only order I would give is the final order to launch ordnance, because I felt the responsibility for killing other human beings was not one that I could pass off. Every other order I stopped giving. I refused to give the orders. We replaced it instead with the officer saying, I intend to, and eventually the crew, and then everyone saying, I intend to blank. And we were very proud of these briefs, right? Gather around the chart table. The enemy's here. We're going to go here. You're going to do this. You're going to do this. Any questions? Never any questions. But that's me telling you what your job is. So we got rid of all briefs. And we replaced it instead with the subordinates telling the superiors in the chain of command what they were going to do, what they thought might happen. We had, if you were a junior enlisted man and you submitted for leave, you needed 5 or 6 people to sign your leave chit. So we eliminated the requirement for any officer to sign any enlisted person's leave chit. We reduced the number of signatures from 5 to 2. We saved a lot of time. We had these elaborate systems of keeping track of what other people owed. We called them ticklers, ironically. And we had tickler meetings. I mean, there was a whole, culture set up around the tickler. And that was the same thing, because again, it was not you doing your job, it was me telling you what to do. So we eliminated the tickler. Now, yes, secretly I kept a list for a while but then eventually I got rid of that, and it was a little bit uncomfortable, but I literally had no list of what anyone on that submarine needed to do other than me. It was awesome. The crew took to it like wildfire. Now, we had some unexpected events. So for example, we were getting ready to deploy final certification. We had to track the submarine. We're getting ready to shoot it. Finally, the hours of nail biting, undersea tension, and we got ready to shoot. And I say, shoot tube 2. Torpedo leaves the ship. There's this whoosh. Whoosh. Torpedo running. Wire good. Wire clearance maneuver complete. Torpedoes merging on the bearing of the target. Everything's going great. And I look over. There's this wire. There's this multiple mile-long wire that connects the torpedo to the ship so we can talk to it. And steering the torpedo is very, very complicated. It was a sort of arcane, 7 people in the world know how to do it. And I had one of them. There's a kid named Smith. And I look over, I've been sort of absorbed. I look over to the weapons control panel, and there's no Smith. Some other kid. I'm like, the chief's standing right there. Hey, Chief Steele, where's Smith? The inspectors are all writing furiously. Yeah, I put him on leave. Doesn't take your permission. Trust me, we've trained, and it was perfect. It was awesome. The year before we did this, we re-enlisted 3 sailors. Now, these guys are working a lot harder. They have to think ahead. They have to think like their boss. They have to be responsible. There's no hiding from the responsibility of your job. How many sailors do you think we re-enlisted? 6? 9? We re-enlisted 33 sailors that year. Because people don't want easy. They want agency. And it's true the ship went from worst to first in almost every operational and combat measure, but I don't really think that's interesting because I think you could do that in an authoritarian way. What's interesting is this. This is Dave Adams. He's the Provincial Reconstruction Team Commander, host province on the border of Pakistan in Afghanistan. Provincial reconstruction teams are the civil military teams that have Army National Guard, State Department, USAID, Justice, NGO reps. They're out there, right? They don't just sit on some base. They're out there with the people. Dave Adams is a submariner. He was a weapons officer on the USS Santa Fe. He's standing there with children of the Mondo Zai tribe. It's a celebration because the Mondo Zai, they're standing in a 100-meter wide wadi there. And the Mondo Zai don't have CAD/CAM programs. They don't have concrete. They don't have rebar. They don't have structural engineers. But they do have a desire for human interaction. And so the villages on the other side of this wadi interact. And they build a bridge every year, and the rains come and wash it away. And last year, there were 2 children on the bridge when it got washed away, and they were lost. This is their new bridge. This is Caleb Kerr, the one on the right. He's a PRT commander for Helmand Province on the border of Pakistan. Yes, he's a submariner. He was the operations officer on the USS Santa Fe. Why are we sending submariners to the mountains of Afghanistan? Crazy. No. They got this done by giving control. Dave Adams didn't provide, one of the problems building a bridge was the security. He didn't provide security. Normal, he didn't take his army guys and say, we're going to do security. What he did was he gave that to the 2 villages. He says, hey, you guys want a bridge? You provide security. Right now, today, Dave Adams and Caleb Kerr are underway on submarines that they are in command of. They are 2 of the 9 officers from that cohort on the USS Santa Fe. They're currently in command or on track to go to command. There's only 14 officers in the wardroom. I did give another order. The submarine was assigned to be in service of a SEAL team. Here they are coming onto the ship. There they are going. And it's now 3.5 days later. It's in the middle of the night. We're on the surface, all stopped, dead in the water. And these SEALs, who we haven't talked to because communications are potentially interceptable, are going to come off the beach in these two Zodiacs to a spot in the ocean, and we better be there. Because you don't want to be in the ocean, the Zodiac, not much gas, no submarine. And I would wander the ship. I had a mic. I'd listen, bridge, talk to control, main deck, control. I just listened, and everything was going great. And all of a sudden, yellow sounding. I ran up to the control room. I looked at the navigation display, and I saw something like this. There was this arrow pointing towards the beach. And I said, started thinking. By this, the officer deck had already ordered ahead 1/3. I'm looking at that, ahead 1/3. I'm looking at that, ahead 1/3. I say, no, back. And immediately, the quartermaster, one of the junior guys in the wardroom, says, no, Captain, you're wrong. What does it take to say to Captain, you're wrong? So I was quiet. I looked at the other indications. What I realized was I'd gotten the direction of motion and the head of the submarine confused. We were actually pointing away. And ahead 1/3 was the perfect command. And he said, stop, all stop. And moments later, the SEAL team arrived. And if they had followed my order, we would have gotten out of position. We might have missed them. But I could rest easy because now I had a crew who was trained for critical thinking, not compliance. My work was done. The question is, what kind of a leader will you be? Will you be a leader who takes control or a leader who gives control? And ultimately, being a leader in service to others is the triumph of deliberate action over impulsive reaction. And I believe that the most important person to have control is you. Because it's that sense of self-control, that it's my leadership, that will allow you to resist the urge to take control from others and instead give control. And that will be your biggest challenge and your most enduring and powerful success. Thank you very much.